All right, I want to welcome everybody to the Confluence Podcast. I am joined by my co-host, Colin Coogan. We also have Matt Squillante here because he forced himself into this podcast because we're enemies. But we also have Dave with us, Dave Schlom. And we're excited.
I'm here to buffer between you.
Yeah, exactly. I really should be sitting here. You're lucky.
Yes.
But yeah, so we're going to be talking about Lassen National Park today.
Lassen Volcanic National Park.
See, that's why he's here.
Yeah, that's why he's here.
Yeah. I always just call it Lassen, like that big mountain up there.
Sure. And, locals call it Mount Lassen, but its real name is Lassen Peak.
Okay.
I'm agnostic about that.
Yeah.
I feel like you can call it
like that.
You can call it Mount Lassen, and I sometimes do, but it's technically Lassen Peak
Okay.
on the map. And, if you look at the park literature and things like that, they never refer to it as Mount Lassen.
Yeah.
Everybody around here does.
That's true. That's the only way I've heard it referred to since I've lived here.
And I do want to disabuse everybody of one notion before we go any further. When you drive up Highway 36 or 32 or even the Skyway up to Paradise, and you see all those black rocks all out there,
Yeah.
those did not blast out of Lassen.
Oh, this is good.
Oh, that's good.
Everybody
That's what I normally
thinks
tell
that.
people.
I always tell people that too.
Everybody thinks that, and it's just not true. I mean, if that happened,
I already don't like this podcast because I'm finding out that I've been wrong about everything.
Yeah, we've been telling guidelines.
Yeah, exactly.
it's everybody thinks that, but if that were true, if you really think about it, that would mean Lassen would be like, I don't know, NASA would want to go to get it to launch things, because that's an awful long way to send a projectile.
Yeah.
And so no, those are just rocks left over from very ancient volcanoes.
Okay.
Way before Lassen's time, even before Mount Tehama, or broke off mountain,
Yeah.
the ancestral mountain up there in Lassen Park. Ancient volcanoes during the ice ages, and just mud flow after mud flow carrying all kinds of volcanic debris down.
Wow.
During eruptions happening during glaciation means you got a lot of ice melt, and so all that stuff would come down in these layers, like layer cakes.
Let's back up for listeners who maybe have never heard about Lassen. So we're in North California. So tell us a little bit about the history of Lassen Volcanic National Park. Okay.
Well, the volcanic is key because it was first a national monument. It was two. There was Lassen Peak and Cinder Cone, which are both volcanoes. And then Lassen woke up in 1914 in May. And like from here in the valley, you would have seen little puffs of steam and ash coming out of Lassen. And then in 1915, in May, there was a series of big eruptions. And you would have seen a towering mushroom cloud, and there's famous pictures from here in Red Bluff, right here, Walnut. There's a very famous picture of that, and those eruptions were pretty dramatic, and it led to the formation of Lassen Volcanic National Park.
And what year was that?
It became a park in 1916.
Okay.
Okay, but the eruption was the year before, and then it became a national park. It's one of the oldest of the national parks. Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
But the reason I like to emphasize the volcanic is you can find every volcanic mountain landform in the park. And it's not that big of a place. So it's very rare on Earth to be able to find a cinder cone, a dome volcano, which is one of the world's largest, Lassen Peak, and then the ancestral Mount Tehama, broke-off volcano. That was a big composite cone like Shasta.
Wow.
Not as big as Shasta, not as tall as Shasta, but a big volcano. And so you've got all these different types of volcanoes, and of course shield volcanoes like you find in Hawaii with the gentler slopes, like Prospect Peak and places like that. So every kind of volcano is found in the park. So for it's like geologist heaven.
Yeah.
You can find every kind of rock and every kind of volcanic landform, and it has really cool geothermal areas like Bumpus Hell, Sulphur Works, and other places in the park, Devil's Kitchen you can go to. So it's like a mini Yellowstone where you don't have to travel to Wyoming.
Yeah. So people who are on the West Coast have a place to go.
You don't have to go to Wyoming to see stuff like that, and be a tour on Yellowstone.
My oldest, I just remembered my oldest daughter, when she was in high school, she was part of a NASA program up there.
Here at the high school?
Yeah.
Yes, through the Ames Research Center. That's a wonderful program.
It was interesting though. She was part of a NASA program, and they
astrobiology.
Really
well, it's interesting because
cool.
where they were studying the Sulphur Works area there, There are these little tiny archaean or ancient bacteria called extremophiles that live in the very hot water, very acidic water. They're very ancient primitive organisms found only, those particular ones found only there. And NASA studies them as an analog for this could be what primitive life would be like, say, in the volcanic areas of Mars.
Yeah, that's what
places like that. So they think it's a terrestrial analog.
Yeah,
and that's why that program's great. Very cool.
Yeah. I didn't understand anything she said, but it was pretty cool.
Well, that means she got a lot out of the program. That sounds good.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's kind of the history of the park. Has it grown at all over the course of the last 100 years? Like just gotten larger as far as like the park?
No, it's
been the same.
No, it's the same. But what has grown is what's interesting. If you go to a place called the Devastated Area, which is a really cool place in the park, right off the park road, you can be in where the eruption happened.
Okay.
In 1950, on May 22nd, if you would have been standing there in the parking lot at the Devastated Area at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on May 22nd, you would have been incinerated, killed.
Okay.
And it's really interesting place to go because now, it's over 100 years now later, the trees have grown up. It's reforested, and so when you look at it, it doesn't look devastated. But if you walk out in it and look at the ground, you realize this isn't normal soil. This is ash and volcanic rock, and they're really cool rocks. They're called dacite, and it's a lava. And there's this pumice there. It's beautiful flow-banded pumice with these gray lines through it. If you find that pumice, and it's pretty easy to find, and don't ever collect rocks in a national park. Leave them where they are.
Not allowed.
It's bad luck for one thing. Bad things will happen to you. You'll take a rock home, and the next thing you know, the IRS will be after you. Your wife will divorce you, and you'll have a terminal disease. Don't pick up rocks in the park.
Matt, next time you go, do pick up some rocks.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna put some in my pocket, and then I'm gonna put them in your truck. But how about that?
Wait,
how about that?
No.
The cool thing is,
that's right.
The cool thing is, you can pick up one of those rocks, hold it in your hands, and say, "I know the born-on day and time of this rock was 4 o'clock in the afternoon on May 22nd, 1915." And it's just a unique feeling to hold a rock in your hand and know exactly when that formed.
Yeah, that's
usually you pick up a rock and it's millions of years.
So the volcanoes are still active volcanoes.
They are asleep, but considered active as far as Lassen Peak may or may not. My guess is probably will never erupt again.
Okay,
but within the park, the Lassen Volcanic Center, there's a high potential that sometime in the next 1,000 years, there will be eruptions.
So
could be next week.
You always hear. I don't know if you hear this
eruptions, but it probably
could
not.
Happen. But it seems like people are always, and it's the same. People just talk about these rocks were formed when the volcano. I think it might be the same thing, but you always hear. I've heard multiple people say, "Oh, every 100 years," or they have like some timetable but that's not accurate, correct?
No.
There's no every 100 years it has to blow off steam.
No, it's not like that at all. But it has the potential there. And the nice thing about volcanoes, unlike earthquakes, for example, is volcanoes they're like rattlesnakes. They give you fair warning. It's like rattlesnakes I find to be fairly gentlemanly creatures. It's like they let you know, unless you're stupid and put your foot or your hand where you can't see. They let you know. The sprinkler goes off, that sound. And you go, uh-oh, sorry, step away.
I need to move.
Take a stick and get him moving on his way. Volcanoes are the same way. They start to have little earthquakes. Magma starts moving, get tremors, harmonic tremors happen all the time. They wake up.
Do they? Is there a plan for that?
Suddenly explode. The volcanoes are both Shasta and Lassen are heavily monitored by
so if something started saying, hey,
they'll be sick.
They'd close off the park or something. Or would they invite Matt to go there more?
They'd be evacuating.
Just curious, Matt.
They'd be evacuating the Northern Valley.
That's kind of cool thing about the history of the park is back in 1914 when I woke up, a lot of the locals here would go up into the park, take their horses up on top of the mountain, hike, and be in the crater, and the things erupt. It's like crazy, but
that is crazy.
And at one time there was a guy up there and it erupted and they had to dive down the snow and try to get out of there. He wound up getting his shoulder broken, a bone in his shoulder. But the mountain never killed anybody, which is a miracle because there was a bunch of people there just a few hours before the eruption. and it was a photographer named B.F. Loomis, and you can go see the Loomis Museum.
I have seen it.
It's wonderful, and his historic cameras in there. It's a really neat place to go visit, see his photographs. But he was there photographing that morning and afternoon, and he ran out of glass plates. And so he's like, well, I'm done. So he and his friends left, and it's just a few hours later, kaboom, and he would have been killed, and his friends too.
That'd be like if we were filming and I was like, the disc is full, guys.
Battery's dead.
we have to go. Yeah, that's. Is there anything else about the history of Lassen that's?
There's so many things. Like President Kennedy visiting there is really cool.
Oh yeah, that's neat.
President John F. Kennedy was there, and he was just there for a little R&R before going to Whiskey Town to open up to dedicate the dam there.
Okay.
And so he just stayed up there as a place to have some downtime. And there's a great picture of him in his jammies and red slippers on, feeding a buck, a deer, right outside his cabin at Manzanita Lake. And the story goes that, after he fed the deer, he walked back into his little entourage and said, well, I'm sorry, but there'll be no more toast for breakfast. I just fed the last piece to the deer. And so that's kind of a cool
that was
story.
a pretty good. That was impressive.
I worked on that.
You're a man of many skills.
I worked on that all night.
Yeah, did you? That's good. Well, good to see that you're actually, trying.
I'm giving it my best.
So, what's the numbers of people that come to Lassen? Or is there an estimate of how many people come to
I don't know that right off the top of my head, but I will say this: it's as national parks go, its visitation is not too bad. Like it's not going to be super crowded. If you avoid the, peak. Don't go on 4th of July or Saturday, in July or things like that. If you avoid those days, go on a weekday in the summer. You can have places in the park, all to yourself.
Yeah.
It's if you can, even if you go when it's crowded, you can go park along the park road and just take a walk off the road and be all by yourself out in nature in a really beautiful place in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not like going to Yellowstone or Yosemite.
I was going to say
battling crowds.
The time I went to the Yosemite, it was like the worst experience ever. So many people. But my first 3 years here, I was at Lassen all the time because it was so close, and I was like, man, it wasn't that crowded. So do you think, so before I moved here, I had never heard of Lassen. So 8 years ago was the first day I'd ever heard of Lassen. Is that pretty common?
Yes, it's not as well known. It's like, when you'll see, when you go scrolling through your Google, you'll see things like 10, hidden gems of the national park system, unknown parks. Lassen's a lot of times, listed as something like that.
Okay.
Because it's not as visited as Yosemite.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But it's become more popular, I will say. The crowds are up. In the many years I've been going since 1974, and in the years that I've been going there, steady increase in visitation.
You notice it, yeah.
And of course, we had the terrible fire, the Dixie Fire, 2021, that it destroyed a lot of the forest in the park. And you can see, as you drive through the park now, there's some pretty, burned out looking areas. You got to be kind of prepared for that. But there's still a lot of beautiful, pristine places in the park that are green and beautiful and awesome.
Yeah. It's a pretty amazing resource close to us. I think that a lot of people.
I think it's very underutilized in general in Northern California.
Yeah, I think during 2020, 2021, that's kind of when I think I started doing trips around. Then we had a lot of people coming up from the Bay or from LA who were just like wanted to get away from the city.
Great place to do that.
Yeah, I mean it was nice because they're like, oh, it's like 4 hours away, or
Well, the other thing is it can be Red Bluff here where we're filming this right now. It can be 115 down here in July, and just
I've
brutal.
heard about that.
Yes, and you can go up into the park and park at the Bumpus Hill parking lot.
Yeah,
put a little lawn chair out there, and it's 78, 80 degrees.
That's so nice.
Read a paperback.
Yeah, we have a location. Our family have a location up there. July 4th, we go up. We have this little spot carved out, on a creek. And it's so nice.
Great.
Yeah, it's like a 25-degree.
Oh, that's
difference,
nice.
As
nice.
you're driving.
It's really nice.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. So you kind of mentioned a lot about the geology, and that's for some people that's like the primary reason why they are visiting.
It's it's why it's a park because it's got such unique geology, but it's also beautiful alpine scenery, wildflowers, There's interesting wildlife. You can see bears there, eagles, ospreys. There's all kinds of cool things up there. So it's not just you don't just go for the rocks. That's for sure. Yeah. It's just a beautiful.
But you have you have there's the what are they? I can't remember the name of it right now. But the steam's coming out of the ground.
Fumaroles.
Yeah. Isn't there a name?
Steam vents, fumaroles.
But there's a name of the one that everybody goes to up there.
Bumpus Hell.
I think.
No. Yeah. That's the
yeah.
one. So you can get to that pretty easily for people.
It's an easy hike. Yeah. I mean, I've seen little old ladies hiking in their heels, and dresses on. I would advise that.
I was just gonna say I would make it. I was like, oh, I can make it. Thank you, Matt.
But I'll help you out.
Maybe you'll take me. Yeah,
maybe
you do have to be careful, when you plan that because it's very high elevation. It's like 8,000 feet up there, and the snow stays in there. Like last year, you couldn't get in there at all unless you went in the back way through Kings Creek. So you got to check the conditions and see if you can get in there. But late summer usually that's one of
the pretty big sites.
Oh yeah, it's way cool. You get in there and it's a rotten egg smell and different colored pools and mud pots, and there's a big boiler. It's a fumarole there that's a boiling spring, and it's one of the hottest fumaroles on Earth. So and it's pretty neat place. Steam coming out. And it's awesome. So people go there, and that's like I said, it's like a little Yellowstone.
Yeah, I did. I think it was 2 summers ago. I had to be on. So I ended up driving from the entrance on this side to the. I did the whole entire thing, and
this side being.
I guess the Red Bluff side.
Southwest.
The southwest side. The right side.
We have to orient people.
Yeah. And it was pretty awesome, though. I mean, I hadn't done the full drive. Like I'd gone in there a few times, and I would always stop at, maybe, I think Kings Creek was pretty much the furthest I'd ever gone. But this one, I did like the full
loop all the way around.
It was funny. I think I'd lived here for 6 or 7 years at the time, and that was the first time doing it. And I was like, man, I'm an idiot for not having done this before because it was so gorgeous.
Oh, it really is. And a great resource for that is the audio road guide, which you can download right off the park website, put on your phone.
So I would
but get it in advance because there's not going to be Wi-Fi up in the park.
So I would type in the Lassen Volcanic National Park.
Yes, go to the official website.
That's a lot of letters.
Write that down.
So if you need some help with
buddy.
Download the audio road guide, and then you can play it through your car, stereo system, and it tells you at each stop, and they've got numbered stops along the way.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed those numbers?
Yeah.
You can pull out and stop, and it tells you what is it that you're seeing here? What's interesting about it?
Yeah.
And there's a familiar voice you'll hear doing it.
Yeah. So I had questions about winter activities.
Oh, snowshoe.
Yeah.
Snowshoeing. Ranger-led snowshoe trips. Those are starting up right now.
Okay.
Those happen on Saturdays and Sundays. 1:30 in the afternoon. You gotta get a ticket. It's free, but with your entrance to the park. But it's first come, first serve, so you can't reserve it. You can't say, "Oh, I'm coming up in March, whatever." You have to get there. I would advise getting there a few hours in advance because they do tend to fill up. Go with a ranger, and they take you out. Usually, just out in the woods and interesting places. And it's really neat. The ranger takes you on a 2-hour snowshoe hike, and
that's cool.
It's just so beautiful out there. And Lassen in the winter is just magical. It's just the greatest snowfall in California happens in Lassen Park on average. Like the greatest snowfall in history is in the basin there where Lake Helen is, right below Lassen Peak.
Okay.
And it's beautiful in wintertime.
Yeah, we've gone up there to get Christmas trees and things in the past, and we always go play in the snow a little bit.
Around Mineral.
Yeah, done a little bit of sledding a little bit here. Yeah. Does that happen at all? Because at one time was there a ski resort?
There used to be a ski resort there years ago. A chalet.
At Lassen.
There was a chalet there and a rope tow.
Yeah.
But they took that out many years ago.
So the park center or the building that now functions
Komyamani Visitor Center.
That used to be
a chalet.
Okay.
And used to be.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I was there. I was like, this feels like it should have been a.
It was long ago.
Okay.
And but now it's like cross country skiing, snowshoeing, or just take the kids up there and let them play in the snow in the parking lot. Get out of the valley and go see the mountains in the snow. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's a lot of great information about the park, and so summertime, springtime, fall, winter. I mean, you can do it anytime. There's always something to see.
There's always something interesting up there.
Yeah.
What are the wildflowers? Excuse me. What are the wildflowers like in the summer?
Oh gosh, they're beautiful. There's a place I like to go below Pilot Pinnacle, which is right off the park road, and there's a geothermal area. Not a lot of people know about it, but you can see, the rock talus up there, the scree slope. And there's steam vents coming out. But you go up and just hike up in there, and then wildflowers up there in the summer are just gorgeous. Oh. And then another really neat place that's easy to see wildflowers is the Kings Creek picnic area.
Yeah.
Right, a little tributary of Kings Creek there, and the flowers in there are just gorgeous in August. It's just so pretty. So yeah, if you like wildflowers, there's tons to see in Lassen Park.
So there's bears up there, there's deer.
Yeah.
There's ospreys, eagles, wildflowers for people like Matt and other people. What are other
aesthetic?
I like
people into art? But what other like animals or their raccoons?
Oh, there's all kinds of there. It's you'd have to. We could spend an hour just talking about all the wildlife there. There's the mountain pica is really cool. They look like little bunnies without ears, and they live right off the Bumpus Hell Trail. Is one of the places they live. And if you're walking along the trail, you'll hear these little squeaky sounds, and that's the picas. And sometimes they'll pop their heads up, and they're really adorable. And a lot of interesting studies going on of the mountain picas.
Cool. Yeah,
they're adorable. Yeah, they're pretty neat. So I would say they're one of my favorite animals in the park.
I don't know what their status is, but I know I've been in the backcountry with my friend, and we saw some, but I think he mentioned they were fairly rare. Their population
is not, it's definitely something that's being studied, and they're threatened by climate change because it's like as things warm up, they're used to that alpine climate, and it's hard on them. But they're up there, and I see them all the time, so they're there. They're there, and they're adorable.
When I was in the backcountry, one of the coolest, most beautiful animals I've seen in California was a marmot.
Oh,
you
yeah.
have marmots
I was
up there.
mention the marmots.
Those are so beautiful. They are gorgeous.
Cool. Very cool that you got to see that. Yeah. So there's, it's, but you could also, I don't want to give people the wrong notion. You go on a long hike through the park and not see, really any kind of big mammals or anything like that. Yeah. You might see just birds and things like that, but they're there, and you got to just be aware.
That's kind of the fun, I think, of going to a national park, though, is what you could see. Right?
And I've gone up there, and bear crosses the road right when you're driving home in the evening. It's like, well, there he goes.
Yeah.
And the bears up there are wild, which is good. Unlike bears in Tahoe and places like that, have become habituated to human garbage and food and stuff like that. Our bears are, we're trying to make sure we keep them wild. So like when you camp up there, there's a bear box. You keep your food in the bear box. You never, ever want to have your food out at night, things like that. And, when you go backpacking, you have to have a canister. You can't just go backpacking with your food without, taking a canister if you're going to go overnight. Because we want to keep those bears wild.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing for anybody listening to this podcast who are going to come, because the park rangers do a very good job of enforcing that. And I mean that, they will light you up.
For good reason.
Yeah, and they should. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And, here's another thing we should mention is, dogs. I'm a dog lover. I have 3 dogs that I adore. It's not a place really to take dogs. There's not much to do with them up there. I mean, you can go to the parking lots, but you can't take them on trails. So it's very limiting.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take your doggy, you're limited to, you're going to be on the road and maybe just go off the road and you walk around a little bit. Make sure you take poop bags if you do that.
Yeah.
But you can't take them off road and go, on a hiking trail.
Yeah.
Or you'll get sighted.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm also a dog person, but it's nice, because it seems like a lot of parks that don't enforce that, there's always some crazy dog that is dangerous.
And people, they're just irresponsible.
Yeah, exactly.
I go.
It's not the dog.
I like
people.
I like to walk around in the diversion dam area here in Red Bluff, which is a nice place to go, and they have flowers there, by the way, too.
Yeah.
And
write that down.
You know, they have containers with poop bags and, you know, waste containers, and yet, you know, you're walking around and there's dog poop. And it's like people just don't, you know, take the plastic bag, put it over your hand, pick it up. It's not gross. You don't touch poop. Pull it over your hand, twist it up, put it in the container.
I've been trying to get one of my sons to realize that principle applies, but he does not.
It's, you know, it's kind of like if you're going to be a fly angler, you want to do it the right way.
It's true.
You don't take you're going to catch and release fly fish. You don't drag the fish onto the bank and let it flop around in the dirt.
Yeah.
Take pictures of it and hold it up. And,
Could you say that again for Matt?
yeah, don't let them flop around the dirt.
Right.
You know, you be responsible, and you know, part of being a dog owner to be responsible is, you know, my neighborhood is not your dog's toilet. It's, you know, it's my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you brought up fly fishing.
I don't know how we got off on that tangent.
I wasn't going to say anything about fishing.
Have to talk about poop.
But yeah, that's a click. That's a click moment right there. But so like fish species, because Lassen Volcanic National Park does have rivers and lakes, or creeks and lakes, I guess would be the proper way to put it. What kind of fish species are around?
Lots of fun fishing opportunities in the park. And surrounding the park, you know, right outside the park is wonderful fishing. Hat Creek and Hat Creek Valley is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then Hat Creek itself, the upper Hat Creek in the park.
Yeah, the headwaters kind of. Right?
Yeah, and like especially if you go down, my favorite place to go fish is down. You go on the Nobles Immigrant Trail. There's a gated gate right there off the park road. You walk down that. It's easy walking. Takes you right along the creek, and you just hike down that.
Yeah.
And you're right in you know, Hat Creek, and it's full of little eager rainbows and lots of brook trout. And the brook trout are an invasive species. So, you know, if you were going to let something flop on the bank, it wouldn't. That probably wouldn't break my heart.
Those are the ones to eat, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're fun to catch. You know, you can just throw on any kind of little caddis pattern or anything. Yeah. And, you know, they're little. You're not going to, you know, you don't need your 6-weight fly rod.
Yeah.
So, but boy, it's fun to watch them come up and just grab that, and then, you know, play with them, let them go.
So there's rainbows. Brookies are all invasive in all of the Lassen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't belong in California. Period.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they were stocked in the park at some
Yeah.
time.
In fact, Emerald Lake,
Yeah.
which is right off the park road at one time, beautiful green lake right below beautiful blue Lake Helen, they stocked that full of rainbow trout and all kinds of trout. And, you know, they thought that was going to be, you know, great fishing thing, great idea. You know, this is back in the 30s when they were stocking like everything.
Yeah.
And what they wound up doing is killing off all of the little frogs that lived up there.
Oh,
so now there's no fish in there anymore, and they're trying to get that frog population back.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, the really prime fishery, though, is Manzanita Lake.
Yeah.
A lot of, you know, that is a really fun place to go fly fishing.
Yeah.
There's some big fish in there. In fact, here's a ranger friend of mine who lives there and fishes there quite a bit. He was out there just not too long ago and was watching a mama duck with the little baby ducks behind her. There were 6 baby ducks, and they're going across. And he watched the last baby duck went bloop under the water, and he's like, "What happened?" You know, and it's the baby duck coming back up, and then the next one, and he got his binoculars out. It was a brown trout just
chowing down
on baby ducks.
Yeah.
So there's some big browns in
We're
there.
going to need you to tie a little bit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we're going to
baby
go rip
duck.
streamers soon.
I already think
I have baby duck pattern.
Yeah.
But so there's big browns in there,
Yeah.
big rainbows, and you know, I've caught them up there on stripping streamers. You know, so if I can do it, you know,
somebody like Luke could probably
somebody
do it.
somebody like you guys could definitely do
Can
it.
you use beats? That's the question.
I believe you can. But the Manzanita Lake, it's really kind of hard to shore fish. You really need to be out floating it.
You need to have some type of a boat or
Watercraft.
You
watercraft.
don't want to be out floating it.
Kayak,
Yeah.
small
Float tube or
drift boat.
whatever.
Yeah, I've always just done my drift boat.
Little drift
thing,
boat's
yeah.
a great way to fish it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know friends that do just like indicator rig with a little balanced leech, and then you put whatever nymph you want to put underneath that, or vice versa.
Yeah.
That works.
Manzanita Lake is arguably one of the most beautiful places I've ever fished.
You know, even if you don't catch anything,
it's
just so pretty.
The backdrop on
is
probably.
I can't even put it into. It's so beautiful.
Because you get the reflections of Lassen Peak and Chaos Crags.
Yeah.
And We didn't
The
even
water-
mention Chaos Crags. They're an amazing
Yeah.
geologic formation right
Yeah.
there, right next to Manzanita Lake.
Yeah, it is gorgeous. Yeah, the water's clear.
Oh,
I mean, it's
really
just,
pretty.
yeah.
And you'll see lots of, birds and things, it's
Yeah.
it's just a beautiful,
There's
beautiful
also
spot.
flowers, Matt, so you'll be happy.
Generally, yes, there are.
Yes.
But great place to go in the summer, take the family, picnic,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
There's a campground there.
There's
a camp there.
campground there. They even have glamping cabins.
Yeah.
They don't have bathrooms or anything, but there's, a bathroom just
Yeah.
down the road from you. And so you can, if you don't want a tent camp,
Yeah.
you can rent a glamping cabin and have a
Yeah.
bed and
Little
know.
cot type of thing, right? Isn't that?
yeah, they're comfy,
Yeah.
and cozy. I've stayed in them and it was pretty neat.
So fishing species though are rainbows, brooks that are invasive,
Mhm.
and then there's brown trout
Catch
as well.
the brook trout.
Yeah, eat every brook trout that you
Well,
can.
On the browns.
I don't know if you're. I think you'd have to check the regulations, but I think you're allowed to take 2 brookies.
Okay. Yeah.
But don't hold me to that.
So any other species of trout? Are those 3?
Those are the only ones that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then any other fish? There's bass in any of the lakes.
Not that I know.
Too
of,
cold.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not.
And there's no more stocking in there.
No,
Everything's
no,
wild.
everything's wild in
Wild and
Manzanita
natural
Lake.
produced,
yeah.
Nothing is stocked in the park. No.
Yeah.
And again, you can stay in the park, visit the park, all the wonderful things that we talked about in the park, and then you've got incredible fishing, less than an
Yeah.
hour out of the park.
Yeah.
20 minutes you can be down fishing in Hat Creek,
Yeah.
down in the Hat Creek Valley, around Old Station.
Mhm.
You can go down to Balm Lake and, fish the wild trout section. That's, really
Mhm.
close to the park. So you can make the park your headquarters, if you
Yeah.
will, for your trip, and then go fish around it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to think about people, listening is that it's a great vacation location because it's absolutely gorgeous. There's fishing in the park that we can do. Like my trips, I think I've done most of the time, it's been like brand new to fly fishing. And then we'll day 3, they'll go and float the lower Sac or the Fall River would be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different options.
Mhm.
Not Feather River, Matt. I'm sorry.
Well, that's a little far from
Yeah,
there.
sorry, buddy. But so there's a lot of different, all the walk and wade trips on Hat Creek that you do.
Great.
You and Colin do, not me. Don't book me. So a lot of options in that area for fishing and for vacation and overall. So there's lakes, there's
Pitt
creeks.
River's not far
Yeah,
either.
Pitt River, yeah.
So it's all pretty much right up in there. So Lassen Park is kind of centrally located in fly fishing heaven.
Yeah, okay. So I guess, a natural question, is there anything else that you'd say are cool things to see?
In the park?
Yeah, or around the park that you would say, hey,
Yes, Subway Cave is a really neat thing to visit. Right outside the park. It's on Highway 89 near Old Station, and it's well signed. It's really neat. It's a big lava tube cave, and you can walk in there. It's big. It's nice and spacious. It's not like claustrophobic kind of cave place. Just bring a flashlight.
Yeah.
And it's really neat because you go in there and it's like about the same temperature anytime you go in there. You can go in there in the winter and it's like
cool.
40, 48 degrees.
Yeah, yeah.
You can go in there in summer and it's 48, 50
Yeah,
degrees.
yeah.
And
That's cool.
It's really neat. It's a cool thing to go see. And then another interesting thing next to the park is the Hat Creek Radio Observatory, where they do the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And you can go visit that and see the big radio telescopes they have, the dishes, and read about the history of that place that's been there since like the 1960s, run by the UC Berkeley, and now it's run by the SETI Institute in Mountain View.
Wow.
So that's interesting, and that's right near the park. So there's so many things to do. You can't see everything and do everything in the park. In one visit, you just can't. So you pick and choose a few things to do and do that, and then come back and do some other things next time.
Okay. So let's say we've got somebody, so there's locations to fly into. So Redding has an airport. So Sacramento, San Francisco, Chico. Where would somebody stay? Were they to?
Well, it's pretty limited up around the park. There's not, there's a few resorts. There's like Mill Creek Resort, which is a really wonderful place to stay.
Yeah.
They have really nice cabins there. There's a more luxury type resort near there called the Highlands. It's a little pricier.
And has a restaurant.
And,
Yeah, it's got a pretty good restaurant.
Yeah. And that's real pretty in Childs Meadows. You stay in Chester if you want to stay in that side of the park where Juniper Lake is. There's no fish in Juniper Lake, but it's very pretty.
Take note of that if you're listening.
And Juniper Lake Campground probably not even going to be open quite this year because of the fire and everything.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't, maybe go that route. But staying in Redding is not a bad idea if you don't want to camp or because it's only an hour drive up to the park. So that's always an option.
So Redding or Red Bluff.
Redding, Red Bluff, Shingletown's got some places to stay, but
there's a few I know I've seen a few Airbnbs are kind of around.
And there's some little resort kind of hotel type things like up around Viola and Shingletown.
Yeah.
If you Google it, you can find some neat places to stay. There's some places in the Hat Creek Valley. And Bernie's got motels and places to stay. Bernie's very close. You got Bernie Falls. We didn't even mention that. It's right near the park. Bernie Falls is great.
I mean, there's a reason why lots of people come up here for a week.
Yes, there's so much to do and see. You can't do it all.
There are caves, there are the national parks, there are
the wildflowers.
Yeah,
Don't
wildflowers. True. Yeah,
forget those.
and then
not in December though.
For us, fishing. Yeah,
and lots of great fishing.
Yeah,
that's why we're here.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right.
Yeah, lots of great fishing.
Sweet.
And the thing to keep in mind as fly anglers is that resource of trout that we have that we love so much. The reason we have that is because of that watershed. Lassen is a wonderful watershed, part of the Sacramento River system.
Yeah,
and
massive,
and so much snow collects up there in the winter. In a good winter like this winter right now, it's getting really good snow. That's where the water comes from, and it flows down into Hat Creek, and it's kind of neat. If you go fish like the wild trout section in Hat Creek, and you want to walk and wade with you guys, it's kind of neat to go up in the park and go up to the Hat Creek to like the headwaters.
Yeah.
And see, this is this little teeny trickle here.
Yeah. Have you guys done that?
Where it all starts.
Yeah.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Where it all starts. It's so pretty.
We should go.
I like hiking with you because when the bear charges, you're definitely going to be the slowest guy.
He always pushes me. It's so mean. He's like, "Hey, see."
I'm always confident that I'm going to make it out no matter what if I'm with you.
Actually, no, I can't beat you up. You're like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist. I can't even get with this guy.
I will say, like I said, our bears are wild.
Yeah.
So, which means you're pretty unlikely to get charged.
Yeah, because they run from me. Thank you.
They don't really want.
They really don't
they
want
don't want to
to do
with
with you.
No, as long as
Nothing to be scared of, just being aware of.
Those headwaters are cool. I mean, there's so many. I guess the little creeks, because we've talked about some of the locations we got.
Kings Creek, so pretty.
Yeah, it's just a great locations to learn how to fly fish. I feel like because the trout are really eager. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they're
little. Yeah, they're like
fun. They're like, where's it at?
And
there's lateral lines, Matt, on the side of the fish. It's like a sonar, okay?
But he said they're little, so
that's true.
That's not in your wheelhouse.
I know,
really.
You're
like those fish don't matter.
You can literally pick out 4 or 5 little flies, flies, and that's all you need. You're not going to need to.
And another,
they're not picky.
I think another cool thing to think about is how salmon used to make it all the way up, there, and that's pretty awesome too.
Oh yeah, they Mill Creek, which is on our side of the park, salmon go all the way up into that, up there.
Still.
So
that's what's cool.
Not as many.
Unfortunately,
but steelhead, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So
there's a few times I've been hiking up there and seen a number of salmon, and I'm just like, oh, it's just crazy to think that this thing
made it all the way.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty amazing. So yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything else to ask about Lassen? You guys got any other questions?
Yeah, I did have a question actually. So you had mentioned it earlier on that there's actually different types of volcanoes. I read somewhere that it's the largest plug.
It's the Lassen Peak itself is the largest plug dome, and so let's talk a little bit about volcanoes real quickly. Like in Hawaii, you have very low viscosity, runny lava. So it comes out and it flows. So you get these, flows. So you get very gentle sloped. You look at the Hawaiian Islands, they look like that. They look like a giant shield on the water from a distance if you're out on a boat. That's runny lava. A plug dome's the opposite. It's like pasty coming out, like literally like toothpaste or putty. It doesn't flow. So it just glops up and plugs the vent. And so usually pressure builds up. And steam and stuff, and then it explodes.
That's the explosion. Okay.
And those are the dangerous volcanoes. We have Lassen Peak's the world's largest plug dome, and then right next to it are the Chaos Crags, which are the same type of volcanoes but much younger. They're only about they were born in 1100 AD, right around there is when they were born. So that's not very old.
Yeah.
Lassen's a much older mountain than that. But same thing. They come out like gloppy paste. Like if you've ever seen the pictures of Mount St. Helens and the dome formation with those big things, that's what Lassen would have looked like forming.
Wow.
So, and it's the world's largest.
That's cool.
So if you went up to the top, you know, those
Of Lassen Peak.
yeah, we're used to volcanoes, and it's got kind of that hollow. Does that plug dome, is it hollow?
Well,
or if you went up there's
the craters that are up there from the eruptions from 1914, but they're filled in with the lava. So you'll see like the very black, craggy dacite lava that's up there. They're filling in the old crater there. So they plugged it,
Cool.
as it were. But if you go to cinder cone, which is another kind of volcano that erupts with little tiny volcanic cinders, hence the name. Very beautiful, and it looks like a volcano. It's got that symmetrical cone shape to it. And you can hike up to the top of that. It's kind of like hiking up a sand dune. It's not the easiest, but it's fun. You get up there and you can see it's got that crater at the top, and it's just like, yeah, this looks like a volcano. Whereas Lassen doesn't really, if you didn't know, you wouldn't look at it and go, oh, that's a volcano.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. It's the largest plug
Largest
dome
one in the
in the
world.
world.
And another, while we're disabusing you of things, is Mount Tehama, the old volcano, the ancestral mountain.
Yeah.
My shirt's got an outline of it right here. Zoom in on that. There's the old volcano, okay, broke off, or Mount Tehama. And, a lot of people think that it, blew up, and that's why it's not there anymore. And, oh yeah, it was a huge, no,
That's what I've heard.
No, yeah, a lot of people hear that. But no, it was just steadily eroded away.
Okay.
Over thousands and thousands of years by glaciation and hot water, acidic water, just eating away at the rock, softening it, and then the ice flows just
Taking it out.
scouring it out. So when you drive the park road, what's really cool from the visitor center, Komyamani, and you're going up towards Lassen Peak and Bumpus Hill parking lot, you're driving inside this amphitheater. Really, a rock amphitheater. You're inside the old volcano. And so like those walls you're looking at on both sides with the interesting colored rock and everything, that's the interior of ancestral Mount Tehama, broke off volcano. Cool. And so you're inside a volcano, like Diamond Peak, which is
nuts.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, Diamond Peak, which is right on the road, and there's big rocks that sit there, and sometimes you see golden eagles sitting up there.
Wow, those are so
wow.
cool.
Yeah. That's like basically that's the core of the old volcano, right in the middle of it. So you're literally inside a volcano when you're driving the park road through there.
One last question.
Sure.
I know in a lot of like thermal, thermal areas, there's like, there'll be like natural hot springs where you can, hop in and.
I'm so glad you asked that. I'm really am. No, I really. That's a great question. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
I did that.
Lassen Park's hot springs, those hot waters, and I've dismantled a few, little soak tub things myself up there, helping out the rangers. That water is so acidic that if you sit in that, then that's like just, you're destroying your skin.
Really?
You're literally sitting in sulfuric acid.
Wow.
And so like
I've heard it's poisonous.
it's nasty.
Because you were out, you were like,
I was like,
now,
are there trout in here? And I was casting, and I was like, but it's warm water.
Now at like Drake's Pad, they have places where they've got warm water coming and filling pools and things where you can go in that.
Yeah.
But don't ever go in any of the places in the park that are geothermal springs, because they're just nasty.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you do not stray off of the boardwalks or the sidewalk. So many people over the years have just thought, this is solid ground, and you step over there and you don't know that, but right under, this far under your feet is a boiling acidic mud pot, and you could punch through there, and you don't just get burned.
Yeah.
You don't just get a thermal burn. You're getting a chemical burn as well. And you're off to St. Elizabeth's or Mercy Hospital. And so
Follow the signs.
don't go off the
Yeah.
boardwalks.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Dave, if in your personal opinion, is there a better side to, like, if you were spending a day just driving around and seeing stuff, what side of the park to enter? Because we have two main entrances to go in the park. There's one way. It's not a giant loop, right? You have a 36 entrance on Highway 36 and Highway 44.
Well, I would put it this way, Colin. You can have both.
Yeah.
You know, you can stay on one side or the other, but driving the entire park road from one side to the other, that is not an all-day trip.
No,
it's just
that's what
it's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
If you want to just zip through. So you can spend 2 or 3 hours and just drive through the whole park, see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Go have lunch at Manzanita Lake, and then go back to your cabin at Mill Creek Resort or wherever.
Yeah.
You can have it all.
Yeah.
It's not that
awesome.
big. Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, the important thing to know is that there's trout in the Lassen Volcanic National Park.
in the geothermal pools, they're already cooked for you.
Matt guides there, so it's
you
perfect.
can just go in, take them out, and eat them.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
No, I'm really thankful that you were able to come by and talk about this. Yeah, it's nice having a local.
It's my favorite place in the world.
Yeah,
it really
awesome.
is. I love it there.
Sweet.
Lassen Volcanic National Park.
And you have you've fished with Colin, right?
I have.
And you fished with Andrew
I have.
Harris, the Andrew Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been out there and done some trout spay recently.
Well, I'll tell you what. The day with Andrew, we had a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
It was
You were doing. Can you tell people what you were doing?
trout spay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, and
Not with a bead.
Yeah, and they didn't have a bead on.
no, but I'll tell you what. Well, that day's fishing wasn't that great, and some days are like that, especially when you're doing something like trout spay. I just fell in love with the method, and so and Andrew was great. Taught me so much. Just he gave me enough information and enough knowledge that then it was like, okay,
Opened up
I'm
Pandora's box.
going to do this.
Yeah.
And I bought myself a nice trout spay rod that wasn't breaking the bank or anything.
Yeah.
And then I've discovered a couple of places to go.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just something about standing in the river, especially on a warm day, and feeling that water flowing around you. And then just, throwing a nice cast out, spay cast, and then swing. You can look around. You don't have to watch a bob or anything. Oh, look at the eagle over there. This is wonderful. And then you hear,
Looking like a true spay guy.
and then
I was just gonna say.
and then you feel this tap, 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 and you're like, oh, tap, 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 chomp.
Yeah.
You don't do anything. You just kind of like, yeah, you're there. Oh, boom, game on. And
I would like to verify though that plenty of people who are bobber fishing are staring around.
well,
as
that's
well.
when you miss it.
Yeah, that's
when you miss
that's
it.
really
That's
clarifying.
always a variable.
Apparently, people can do that.
It's like the fish know. It's like wait for him to reach for his beer. Wait for it. Wait, he's reaching for the beer now.
Yeah.
And then your guide goes oh, and you realize you missed it. But
Yeah.
no, I love indicator.
Actually, guys, we wait for you to look away and then we say, "Oh, you missed
Yeah,
it." Yeah.
indicator nymphing on the lower sack
Yeah.
is one of the best days you can have in your life. It is so fun. It's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That river, the lower Sacramento River, to me is one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
Yeah, I love it.
And you can get out there in some of those stretches. You don't even realize that Redding or Red Bluff or whatever is right over there. You're in a whole other natural
Very
world.
diverse from top to bottom.
It's
Yeah,
so
55
pretty.
miles of really diverse water.
Oh,
to go
yeah.
in. Yeah.
And
You can do the urban fishing, or you can go down low.
and
It's just
the
different.
and the fish are big, wild, healthy.
Yeah.
They fight like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a wonderful experience. So if you've never done a lower sack, indicator nymphing trip, especially for a beginner, it's a great way to go. So going out with somebody like you, I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong. It's
And
really fun.
also too for folks listening to this, what's really cool is that we have Confluence has permits to guide up on Lassen, and what's cool about I think that week, is you can come out, you can see a ton of different things. You can fish with either one of us on different fisheries. There's just a lot of cool stuff.
And then you could combine it. You could spend your time up in Lassen,
Totally.
go down and fish the lower sack, and
do
then
it all.
go back up in the mountains.
Yeah,
It's
that's right. Dodge the heat.
It's really not.
And they can listen to you on their tour.
You can listen to me on the
Or
tour.
also on the radio, is that right?
Or listen to me on Blue Dot, which is also a podcast. You can just Google Blue Dot and Dave Schlom, and you'll find it.
Awesome,
But,
sweet.
yeah, and North State Public Radio produces it.
Cool.
It's on right now. I've actually just ended.
Simultaneously.
Two places at once.
It's taken me so many years to develop this simultaneity.
Yeah,
to be able
you got
to,
it down.
I've got, I'm on with you and on the radio at the same time.
That's awesome.
It's
we really appreciate you taking the time to stop by and do this with us.
Thanks for asking me. And I enjoy your guys' work. I do. You
appreciate that.
Yeah, when you did on guiding, I really found that to be really good stuff.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Good job, Colin. So, hey, thanks for listening. It would really help us if you would leave a review. Also, you can follow us, subscribe on our YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And Matt also has a new MySpace page. Definitely want to check that out, too. So thanks for listening.
And you can check out Blue Dot on mynspr.org.
We got TikTok.
Oh, and we are on TikTok. That's right. So that's actually true. We are on TikTok.
He was busy trying to be funny and he forgot TikTok.
Trying? All right, we'll see you guys later.